On my birthday, the incredible truth was revealed. I was the one who owned everything. Sarah felt the weight of that statement compress around her as she scrubbed the breakfast plates, her heart aching with the mundanity of it all. Double shifts at the diner felt never-ending, and each flip of her wrist carried decades of unfulfilled dreams. Lily, her radiant 4-year-old, deserved the world, and yet here they were, in a tiny rented room barely big enough for their laughter. The thought of the upcoming birthday celebration hung heavily in the air, a bittersweet reminder that while she chased time, life crept in, whispering of the things she could never be. The eve of her birth stirred nostalgia. Memories of her grandfather's stories wrapped around her like a warm blanket, the comforting drawl of his voice telling tales of resilience and strength. But those echoes faded each day, buried beneath the responsibility of making ends meet. Self-doubt throbbed in her gut. What would her grandfather think of her now, a single mother struggling to keep her head above water? Was a different path not meant for her? Each day, that burning question pushed her deeper into a pit of despair. And then it came. An unexpected letter slid into her apron pocket during a rare lull at the diner. She hesitated to open it, her heart racing. Was it another bill? An invitation to a world which she had long watched from a distance? The moment she broke the seal, adrenaline surged as her hands trembled. The words within shattered her own narrative, claiming that her family had owned a prosperous farm for generations, unbeknownst to her all these years. Could this really be true? A silent legacy hidden in plain sight, waiting for her to reclaim it. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That flicker of possibility sparked a chaotic storm within her. What if she was capable of owning something? The town where she felt so small had always cast shadows on her potential. Doubt clawed at her insides. What if they dismissed her, viewed her as just the waitress who never amounted to anything? As she contemplated her next move, every fear morphed into a monster. Inadequacy imposed itself in the faces of those who once turned their backs on her. The stark reality loomed. Could she face the legal jargon, the societal prejudice, to claim what was rightfully hers? This new path felt both thrilling and terrifying, anchoring her in confusion. She could feel pride and fear intertwining relentlessly. Standing at the edge of this unknown territory, she wrestled with the mutterings of her past and the sinful question of whether she could ever truly belong. Taking that leap meant confronting the very people who had dismissed her dreams. Her breath hitched, a symptom of uncertainty gripping her heart as she prepared for the reopening of the family farm, a chance to unveil not just the land but herself, who she was and who she could be. Tension looped tightly like a noose as the initial excitement turned to agonizing pressure. Could she command respect, or would her appeal be consumed by their skepticism? Gathering her resolve, she learned that soon the weight of her family legacy might finally rest upon her shoulders, an immense burden intertwined with hope. Now she had to decide how far she was willing to go to claim the truth. Could Lily be proud of her mother? Could she face the crowd and risk it all? As dawn broke, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. The reflection staring back at her seemed foreign, a woman on the precipice of transformation, yet shackled by uncertainty. Today was not just her birthday. It would mark her first step toward reclaiming her legacy. A nervous energy buzzed through her veins, pulling her between hope and fear. The letter still rested in her apron, a tangible reminder of the family farm she thought lost to time. Her inheritance, yet she felt an imposter in her own narrative. Clenching her fists, she resolved that fear wouldn't dictate her day. She scrambled for a plan, recognizing that knowledge was the first tool she'd need in this daunting journey. With each passing moment, she juggled the weight of motherhood, her regular shifts at the diner, and now, the complexities of law surrounding inheritance. Could she navigate this tangled web? The image of Lily dancing around the small room, carefree and blissful, fueled her determination. She wanted to give her daughter more than just survival. She wanted to show Lily what it meant to thrive. After work, Sarah buried herself in research. She pored over legal documents, diving into the history of the family farm for hours, battling headaches and the creeping desire to throw in the towel. But words jumped off the pages, igniting a flicker of passion. Her grandfather's dreams and struggles pulsated within every line. The farm symbolized resilience, a rich tapestry of struggle woven through generations, and suddenly it didn't feel so distant. Yet insecurities gnawed at her during the quiet hours of the night. The populace she feared loomed large in her thoughts, the townsfolk who knew her as the waitress, the girl who never left. What if they laughed at her aspirations? What if they tried to tear her down again? She wouldn't let them. She would be more than their perceptions. As the hours slipped by, she meticulously crafted a list of what she needed to do first. Consult an attorney, gather documents, and connect with anyone who understood the intricacies of land management. Each tick on her checklist transformed into a moment of empowerment, stirring something deep within her that she thought she had lost, a sense of agency. The day arrived when she would visit the attorney. Her heart raced, fueling an array of thoughts that flickered like wildfire. She practiced her goals, to reclaim what belonged to her and to carve out a space where she and Lily could flourish. As she prepared her statements using the mirror, she envisaged standing firm, exuding the confidence that would demand respect. Yes, she would establish herself as more than just a woman battling against odds. Stepping into the narrow office, the scent of old paper swirled around her nostrils. The attorney, a woman with sharp eyes, sensed her unease immediately. Sarah took a deep breath, leaning on the stories of her grandfather for strength. "She'll be heard, damn it." "Can you help me?" The words finally escaped her lips, steady and grounded. It was daunting. Vulnerability always was. But it was also liberating. "Absolutely." The attorney nodded, her pen poised. "Let's discuss your legacy." With each moment, authentic interest blossomed, fueling Sarah's hope. Could she hold on to this momentum? The attorney laid out the steps needed to reclaim her family's farm, illuminating paths riddled with challenges. Yet the idea of ownership, of responsibility for that land, sent ripples of fear and exhilaration through Sarah. As they spoke, she understood one critical truth. Nothing came without navigating the storms of doubt, something she had always fought against. What if confronting her past revealed more than just inheritance? What if it illuminated the powerful woman she could become, capable of astonishing feats? As the meeting concluded and she left the office, reclining on the sensation of newfound determination, Sarah faced uncertainty that whispered in winds of potential. Standing on the cusp of a decision that could define her future, she realized the true journey was just beginning. Still, doubt lingered, clawing at her resolve. Would she truly face the turbulent waters and fight for her legacy? Or was this merely a dream destined to crash against the rocks of reality? With those questions swirling in her heart, a sudden rush of inspiration hit her like a flash of lightning. She would create a plan to mobilize others in her journey. But who would stand with her? Would she find allies, or did she have to blaze this trail alone? Sarah took a deep breath, her determination crystallizing. Now the time had come to assemble her resources and face the people on her path head-on. And, as evening fell, with the soft glow of streetlights guiding her, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if confronting those she once feared revealed an adversary she hadn't accounted for? The very person she saw each morning in the mirror. Sarah awoke the next day with a restless energy coursing through her veins. The sun streamed through her window, illuminating her resolve with a golden hue, clashing with lingering doubt that settled in her stomach. Today, she wouldn't just visit the attorney. She would begin stepping into the role she had been shying away from for too long. She was no longer just Sarah the waitress. She was also Sarah, a determined heir seeking her rightful place. After dropping Lily off at school, Sarah drove through town, grappling with mixed emotions. The familiar streets brought back fragments of her childhood, but they were now tinged by uncertainty. Would her neighbors see her as a fool chasing foolish dreams, or would they recognize the fire that deferred no longer? She needed to confront these fears, and on this day, she had to gather the strength to do it. Arriving at the office, the aroma of aged paper and polished wood welcomed her back. The attorney, sensing her nervous energy, encouraged her to sit down. "Today is about defining your path, Sarah," she said, her tone firm yet encouraging. "It's time to outline your vision for the farm." Sarah nodded, opening her notebook filled with scribbled ambitions and questions. As she detailed her ideas, envisioning crops flourishing and children laughing in the fields, a determination solidified within her. This place wasn't just a piece of land, it was a sense of belonging, a heritage that connected generations and a symbol of what she desired to create for Lily. "Let's talk about the practical steps you'll need to take," the attorney interjected, pulling Sarah back into the moment. "You'll want to arrange an estate review, find out about potential taxes, and consider the financial aspects of running a farm. Have you had any conversations with local farmers?" The question struck deep, unearthed a longing to belong to that community while stoking anxiety. She had always viewed the farmers with admiration, yet she had never considered them allies. What if they wouldn't accept her? To face them, she'd have to confront her fear head-on. Leaving the attorney's office, Sarah felt an intricate mix of purpose and trepidation. How could she step into such a world? The voices around her seemed to echo doubt. They questioned her past choices, her right to seek this future. But a flash of resolve emerged. It was time to rethink her narrative, to reframe the internal dialogue that had kept her small. Over the next few days, she studied everything about managing a farm, attending workshops, reading agricultural guides, and reaching out to local farmers. Each day arrived with its own set of challenges, but there were also glimmers of hope. One afternoon, a farmer named Tom took a chance on her. He agreed to meet. Sitting at a rustic diner booth, she shared her dreams. "You think you can do this, huh?" he asked, eyebrows raised with skepticism. "Maybe," she replied, each syllable imbued with defiance. "But I believe I have to try, and I'm willing to learn." Tom nodded, followed by a small approving grin. "All right then, don't just believe it, show it. We've all had our struggles too." Encouraged, Sarah left the diner with renewed vigor. She was building connections, roots, and budding opportunities, yet uncertainty still loomed. Each step toward collaboration felt like a small battle in the larger war against her self-doubt. Was she still the imposter she feared, or was she capable of manifesting this vision? As the week passed, Sarah grew closer to Tom and other local farmers. They shared tips, tools, and stories of their own failures. Through these interactions, she discovered untapped competencies within herself: negotiation skills, an eye for detail, and a commitment to learning that surprised even her. But just as she started to taste victory, the whispering fear returned. What if their support didn't shield her from the potent judgment of others? What if a conflict with a rival farmer or local figures emerged and stymied her progress? One night, as she noticed her reflection in the mirror again, the conflict came to the surface like an eerie echo. This time, the adversary wasn't just an external idea. It was the fear that lurked inches away, ready to sabotage her every move. Could she confront that fear, step into her own power, and truly fight for her legacy without losing sight of who she was becoming? With that thought weighing heavily on her mind, the next morning she opened her notebook, ready to outline her approach, but she hesitated. What would happen when she had to stand against the very people she wanted to be a part of, those that could either lift her up or push her back down? The pencil hovered above the paper, and a chilling realization crept in. She was standing at a precipice, and the battles ahead were not just about land, but ownership of her own narrative. Sarah awoke the following morning with a knot of anticipation twisting in her gut. Each heartbeat resonated with the urgency to take control, yet uncertainty loomed overhead like a thundercloud. Today she had a meeting scheduled with Tom and a few other local farmers, and the thought of presenting her ideas still sent ripples of fear through her body. As she prepared Lily's breakfast, Sarah's mind drifted back to the conversations she'd had over the past week. Each encounter felt like both a lifeline and a trap. The encouragement from her new acquaintances forged a sense of camaraderie, but their criticisms, rooted in skepticism, now echoed in her mind louder than ever. What if they viewed her aspirations as a mere fantasy? With a quick goodbye to her daughter, Sarah drove toward the meeting spot, a local barn that doubled as a community hub. The sun peeked through the clouds, hinting at a blue sky ahead, but darkness still clouded Sarah's thoughts as she parked her car. She caught her reflection in the window, searching for a glimmer of confidence she hadn't felt in so long. Yet all she saw was the same face that once cringed away from dreams. Upon entering the barn, the aroma of hay and fresh soil wrapped around her, triggering a mix of comfort and anxiety. The informal gathering was already warming up with laughter and the familiar banter she had initially admired from a distance. As she took a seat at the long wooden table, she prepared to share her thoughts on the potential crops she envisioned: heirloom tomatoes, vibrant peppers, and maybe even a flower garden that could attract local families. Tom nudged her gently. "You ready to share what you've got?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. In that moment, Sarah's heart raced. This was her chance. This was where she could either shine or stand still. Did she dare step into the spotlight where judgment awaited? "Absolutely," she managed to say, forcing her voice to steady. As she spoke, the words tumbled out, infused with passion. She painted vivid pictures of row after row of lush greenery, of children picking fruits under the warm sun, and the joy of community gatherings on her land. For a heartbeat, the world fell away, and it was just her dreams, and the hopeful glint in Tom's eyes. As she concluded, a moment of silence enveloped the table. Then, one farmer, a burly man with a weathered face, leaned in, crossing his arms. "It all sounds grand, but are you prepared for what it really takes? Farming is not just a dream, it's a grueling life." A lump formed in Sarah's throat. The critical voice felt heavy, a brand of doubt she'd carried for too long. Yet within her, a spark ignited. "I understand that," she breathed, meeting his gaze. "But I've realized I won't know unless I try. I want to learn. I've been a waitress long enough. Now it's time for something more." The air thickened with tension as she challenged the embedded narrative of her past. But a breakthrough was in reach. Other farmers glanced at each other, exchanging looks of contemplation. Would her earnestness be enough to win their trust, or would the caution of their own struggles drown out her aspirations? Tom shifted in his seat, breaking the quietness with a nod. "That's the spirit we need. You bring fresh ideas. Don't let them wither in the face of doubt." Sarah's heart surged. Their support was fragile yet tangible. She could feel it weaving its way into the fabric of their gathering. Yet deep within, the fear loomed like a shadow, whispering of challenges to come. Would one conversation be enough to turn the tide in her favor? As they continued discussing practicalities and experiences, laughter began to mingle with the serious tones. Sarah felt a melding of spirits, the foundation of a new identity forming around her. A farmer, a leader, a woman defying the odds. However, amidst the blossoming connections, a chilling thought emerged. What if the very farmer she sought to align herself with had ulterior motives? Was there a risk lurking in those warm welcomes? Determined to fortify herself, Sarah jotted down notes, her heart racing with possibilities. Each word held promise, yet the fear nagged persistently at the edges of her mind. This moment felt pivotal, an intersection of past and future, threatening to shatter her fragile resolve. As she drove back home, the air outside felt electric, yet the uncertainty burrowed deeper. She was no longer merely afraid of failure. Now she grappled with the potential treachery in forging these new bonds. What lay ahead could reshape everything. And as she turned the key in her front door, it hit her. She was on the brink of either unlocking her legacy or stepping back into obscurity. The choice no longer revolved around whether to dream, but rather how to navigate a landscape where trust was as perilous as the journey itself. With renewed determination coursing through her veins, Sarah recognized the next step would require more than just desire. It would demand strength, resilience, and a readiness to face whatever truths awaited her. As she sat down with her notebook once more, exhaustion clashed with vigor. All she could think was, the time had come to face not just her surroundings, but the shadows of her ambition. Would she emerge victorious, or was she entrenched in a conflict she hadn't yet grasped? A breath caught in her throat as she stared at the blank pages before her, yearning for direction. The moment of truth approached, and the stakes had never felt higher. The following morning, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, the sun streaming through the window, illuminating the clutter around her. The remnants of her dreams from the meeting still lingered, mixing with the practicality of life in a way that felt almost surreal. Her pencil hovered over the notepad, but all she could manage was to trace circles, anxiety tangling with her thoughts. Qualifications or assumptions? The question gnawed at her. Would the farmers truly see her vision as viable? With that farmer's skepticism ringing in her ears, it felt like a litmus test. Each stroke of the pencil felt like an act of rebellion against every voice that had tried to discourage her. "Mommy, look!" Lily's bright voice broke through Sarah's introspection. A doll, wrapped in a blanket, sat nestled in Lily's arms. The innocent glee was infectious, igniting a warmth that washed over Sarah. But even as she smiled and played along, the undercurrents of tension remained, tugging at her resolve. After breakfast, she wrapped Lily in her favorite jacket and headed outside, where the crisp air enveloped them. It was beautiful outside, yet the world felt heavy with expectation. How could she balance being a mother and venturing into the unknown? Each step forward felt like both a leap of faith and a burden of responsibility. As they strolled through the local market, Sarah's eyes wandered over the vibrant produce and the bustling community. Her heart quickened at the sight of farmers discussing their recent yields. A thought struck her. She needed to talk with them again, to understand their struggles more deeply. Maybe she could gather insights that would bolster her confidence, direction, and approach. But as they neared the nearest stall, her jaw tightened. The burly farmer from yesterday was there, engaged in animated conversation. His presence stirred something visceral within her, a mixture of admiration and trepidation. Would he challenge her again? "Hey there, Sarah," he called out, spotting her. "Glad to see you're not hiding from yesterday's conversation." His speech felt taunting, yet she recognized the possibility for redemption. "I was hoping to hear more about your experiences and thoughts on heirloom tomatoes," she replied, forcing clarity into her voice. He looked surprised but waved her over, and with an encouraging nod from Lily, they approached. As they mulled over various agricultural techniques, Sarah found herself questioning him about soil types, risks in the market, and what had motivated him in his journey. His answers were layered with both pragmatism and passion, a dual nature that made her rethink her earlier assumptions. "I admire your willingness to learn," he said thoughtfully. "Not everyone is willing to admit they need guidance. But don't take everything at face value. Some folks might not have your best interests at heart." His warning hung between them, clattering like loose change in her pocket. He was right. Navigating this new territory would require more than vision. She needed a strategy, personal and professional, a plan that would safeguard her ambitions. Later that evening, Sarah spent hours filling page after page, organizing research notes and collating strategies. There was a thrill in the act of preparation, an adrenaline rush as she envisioned her steps ahead. The door to her potential was cracked open, and her resolve began to harden into a fierce determination. Yet as she added the last notes, a sudden chill spread through her, an awareness of a critical choice looming over her. Could this newfound clarity unravel further complexities? With trust now a central pillar, would she crash against the very people she aimed to ally with? A sense of foreboding settled in, overshadowing the momentum she had begun to build. Deep down, Sarah sensed that the upcoming days would test not only her intentions, but also relationships that hadn't fully formed yet. And as she closed her notebook, a thought stirred, almost whispering to her. What if she discovered hidden talents that would change everything, but at a price she hadn't prepared for? The echoes of possibility rang out, a bell tolling in the silence of her home. Tomorrow might bring clarity, or it could deepen the mystery, bringing revelations that could shatter her confidence or empower her journey. Would she be prepared for the truth waiting just beyond the threshold of her dreams? The morning sun cast soft shadows over Sarah's desk, illuminating her carefully laid papers. She sat, poised but restless, ready to face the day. The previous night's revelations were still a vivid tapestry in her mind, threads woven with both hope and apprehension. The farmer's words echoed, transforming into a mantra. "Some folks might not have your best interests at heart." With a rush of adrenaline mingled with trepidation, she recognized the weight of vulnerable ambition. Today felt critical. She could no longer remain a passive observer in her own life. She had to act on her intentions. Before even pouring her first cup of coffee, Sarah opened her laptop, navigating through bits of research and email threads. She could expose herself to yet another layer of scrutiny, but this was the path she had carved for herself. Each click felt like plunging deeper into a world that thrived on expertise, and she absorbed new concepts like a sponge. Market trends, consumer preferences, innovative agricultural practices. She began to understand they were like the soil that fed her sprouting dreams. "Mommy, can I help?" Lily's voice broke through, playful and innocent. Sarah turned, her heart swelling with affection. "Of course, sweetheart. You can help me color in my planner." As they collaborated, Sarah made an effort to blend childlike joy with her own serious pursuits. Lily's laughter filled the air, yet a shiver of doubt grazed Sarah's mind. Was she engulfing herself too fully in this quest? Could she truly juggle both motherhood and entrepreneurship without losing herself in the process? The thought lingered. Time was slipping, and she had made no actual contact with the farmers since her last conversation. There was only one way to bridge that gap. She needed to attend the bi-weekly farmers' meeting later that afternoon. Heart racing, she glanced at the clock, then hurried to finalize her notes. If she planned her words like a presentation, she could effectively communicate the value in her ideas while avoiding the defensive postures she had previously succumbed to. She needed more than just a dream. She was forging a narrative where she belonged. Arriving at the meeting felt like entering a lion's den. The small room buzzed with chatter and energy, Farmers of all ages mingled, discussing various challenges and ideas. Her heart pounded as she stepped inside, drawing on the strength she cultivated during her late-night planning session. She glanced at the burly farmer from before, who was now gesturing animatedly as he spoke. Their previous conversation lingered in her thoughts, foreshadowing the challenge ahead. His presence invigorated her. She needed to impress him and the others. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached the circle of discussion confidently, introducing herself and expressing her desire to contribute to their discourse. I have been exploring heirloom tomatoes and their market potential. I believe they can offer better yields and a unique appeal. It was as if a switch flipped in the room. The farmers paused, their eyes narrowing with curiosity. Some were intrigued, others skeptical. The farmer she had spoken to previously raised an eyebrow, silently awaiting her next move. In that moment, Sarah felt the full weight of vulnerability, but also an electric thrill. Would they reject her outright? Or could she weave a connection through shared knowledge? She voiced her findings, couched within the rationale of soil health and sustainable practices, hoping to resonate with the concerns of the farmers present. The tension danced in the air. Their questions ranged from apprehension to genuine curiosity. As the exchange unfolded, there was a growing stream of insights and perspectives pouring into the room. The connections began to sprout. Suddenly, Sarah realized she wasn't just presenting a theory, she was fostering dialogue. Each response revealed pieces of both her and the farmer's collective vision. A vision that could either support or dismantle everything she sought. Yet, a single voice rose above the chatter, cutting through the optimism. What do you know about our realities? You're just an outsider. The room stilled, and all eyes turned toward her. In that charged moment, Sarah faced more than just skepticism. She confronted the fear that threatened to undo her newfound confidence. The question hung heavy, forcing her to confront not only her expertise, but also the layers of doubt she carried. She inhaled deeply, her heart racing as she prepared to respond, not just with words, but with the strength she had begun to uncover within herself. Would her answer define her future in this world, or would it leave her outside, lurking in the shadows of someone else's dreams? The meeting swirled around her as she prepared to lay bare both her knowledge and her vulnerability. For every truth realized, a sacrifice loomed close at hand. Could she choose her moment wisely? As she opened her mouth to speak, her mind raced. Was she prepared for the truth, the vulnerability and the strength required to face the world head-on? The pivotal moment was at hand. Sarah took a moment to collect her thoughts, the weight of the question urging her deeper into introspection. The room, filled with faces etched in skepticism and intrigue, prompted her to strip away the layers of pretense she often relied upon. How could she convey her understanding of their struggles without belittling their experiences? My journey into agriculture started out of sheer necessity, she began, her voice steadying with each word. We aren't so different, you and I. Many of us, especially women, face obstacles in our fields. I've learned from my own experience that knowledge isn't just quantitative, it's about grappling with challenges and weaving them into the fabric of what we do. The farmers shifted slightly, seemingly taken aback by her openness. Some leaned in as if they were drawing from her resolve, while others exchanged glances, skepticism still flaring in the eyes of a few. But in the act of sharing her vulnerabilities, she was crafting her narrative. A narrative not merely about heirloom tomatoes, but about her place in this world. I may not possess the years of farming experience many of you do, she continued, but I do understand the business side. I've dived into what makes products sell and what consumers are hungry for. Farmers are artists, creating with the land. I want to help both of us thrive. Let's collaborate, share insights, and build foundations that are resilient. A silence enveloped the room, pregnant with tension. Then, as if on cue, the previously skeptical farmer spoke up again. Say we entertain your ideas. What's in it for us? We've been doing things the same way for generations. His words pricked at Sarah's resolve. This was where her research needed to shine through. What if I proposed a farmer's market, featuring your heirloom varieties? Imagine a branding campaign that highlights not just the produce, but the stories behind each crop and the farmers who cultivate them. Together, we could tap into the growing consumer demand for local and unique products. As she articulated her vision, Sarah felt a pulse of purpose running through her. The details she had analyzed, the potential yields, the premium prices that heirlooms could fetch, were not mere statistics. They could transform lives. The farmer's expression shifted, a crack in his skepticism beginning to take shape, and she seized the moment. Let's work collectively to create a niche market. Your harvest can tell our local story, garnering respect and revenue that reflects the real value of your work. I may be an outsider now, but I'm committed to making this more than just a proposal. Consider me a partner who's here to advocate for you. A murmuration of conversations began again, the energy sprouting like new growth in their interactions. Each farmer in attendance peeled back a layer of reluctance, engaging with curiosity rather than hostility. Sarah felt exhilarated. Vulnerability had transformed into empowerment, and the nebulous doubts she harbored dissipated in the clarity of her mission. Yet, amidst the budding camaraderie, the first farmer's earlier warning echoed back. Some folks might not have your best interests at heart. The thought lingered like a shadow, reminding her that credibility was still a fragile commodity. Tension resurfaced when a voice cut through her thoughts. But who are you really? You come here with ideas, but what about follow-through? This echoed into the depths of her mind, a challenge that reverberated in her core. She needed to establish trust not only with her newfound allies, but also within herself. Was she ready to meet the expectations she had just set? Was this all too much? Too fast? Look, Sarah said, turning her focus from the group to the farmer who posed the challenge. I can bring ideas, and I'm here to learn, but I can only succeed if you help me understand your realities. Teach me what I need to know, and I promise to match your depth in commitment. Each of us will have to invest ourselves for this to work. Investment, she realized, was not just financial. It was emotional, intellectual, and relational. This was the threshold of her growth. She was being called to forge bonds of trust in environments that could thrive on collaboration. But the road ahead began to feel daunting, as the initial excitement she'd conjured up gave way to unsettling uncertainty. Could she build genuine alliances amidst the farmers, grappling always with her position as an outsider? The meeting, once a stage of vulnerability and ambition, had become a complex interplay between hope and doubt. Real trust built over time, and she had yet to navigate this delicate landscape. With several nods and newfound interest glimmering in their eyes, the room began to shift again, but shadows still hung in balance. What awaited her in the days to come? Would she sustain her momentum, or was she destined to fail in her pursuit of connection? As the meeting drew to a close, Sarah realized her journey had only just begun. Secrets of the land intertwined with her resolve, and the moment called for not just insight, but action rooted in mutual respect. Standing on this precipice, she prepared for the hurdles ahead, wondering, would her determination to break through the outsider's veil be enough to change everything? The following morning, sunlight spilled across Sarah's makeshift workspace. The radiance illuminated scattered papers filled with her sketches. Each drawing represented a farmer's market stall, vibrant heirloom vegetables adorned with compelling narratives. She lingered on her notes, feeling both the thrill of new possibilities and the weight of looming expectations. Where would she begin to cultivate genuine connections? Determined to not let yesterday's uncertainty stifle her ambition, she pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts until she located the farmer who had expressed skepticism. Offering a candid invitation to meet, she aimed to schedule time to better understand his concerns. As the day wore on, anticipation itched at her insides, but so too did self-doubt. Would he take her seriously after their previous interaction? Later that afternoon, she tucked a notepad under her arm and headed to the designated meeting spot, a local diner known for its communal charm. She entered, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around her. Her heart raced with energy and nerves as she settled into a booth, awaiting his arrival. When he entered, she could sense the resistance in his gait, a wall still surrounding him. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice steady, despite the flutter in her chest. He grunted in response, sliding into the seat across from her, arms crossed defensively. "What do you want?" "I want to understand your farming experience, your struggles, your successes. We need to uncover what would make this partnership worthwhile for you and others." He shifted uneasily. "You think you can come in here and change decades of tradition? We've faced storms, droughts, all sorts of challenges. What can you even offer?" "Perspective," she replied, meeting his gaze. "You possess invaluable knowledge about the land and its cycles, but together we could adapt to market demands and create greater opportunities." As the conversation unfolded, his initial reluctance slowly simmered down. Sarah could sense the barriers softening, the topic shifting toward how previous generations had resisted change, but also had done so out of necessity. The underlying fears of modern agriculture pressed heavily on their dialogue. "Look, it's easy for someone like you to throw around ideas," he finally conceded, leaning back and relaxing his arms. "But it's the day-to-day that's a struggle. I've seen too many outsiders come and go, promising the world without knowing the weight of each seed planted." Sarah nodded, feeling the sting of truth in his words. "I hope you can see I'm not here to dismantle, but to understand. I know how vital tradition is, but merging that with innovation could yield unrealized potential." As the conversation deepened, Sarah discovered much more than she anticipated. Farming wasn't just a means of subsistence, it was a way of life rooted in identity and community. The flow of his stories unveiled not just tactics of agricultural resilience, but a longing for recognition. She began to sketch a plan reflecting the farmer's experiences, interwoven with her insights on markets. But as she furiously scribbled notes, a lingering shadow crept into her mind. Would this deeper understanding truly be enough? The apprehension returned, gnawing at her confidence. Was she encroaching too much, veering toward an expectation of acceptance that might not materialize? Flushing these thoughts aside, she pressed on as the hour drew late. Let's create a story that honors the heritage while paving the way for future generations. We can develop unique branding, tapping into the emotional resonance of local produce, that could not only sustain, but revive this community. His brow furrowed. You'd need to prove that your idea isn't just talk. How do I know you'll stick around? That question still echoed from their last meeting, unearthing the core of her fear. Her words now bore a gravity she could hardly fathom. I understand that trust builds over time. Allow me to help market your harvest, and we can inform and educate together. Just give me a chance to earn that trust. What do you say? He paused, weighing her sincerity. The flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, yet there was something else, a glint of hope perhaps. Fine, but don't think I'm going easy on you. I'm watching. It felt like a step forward, and yet Sarah recognized the caveat inherent in the agreement. This next phase of her journey demanded resilience, and trust must be carefully cultivated, much like the crops in the fields. The conversation ended, yet her mind raced with strategies, intertwining her aspirations with the tangible needs of the farmers. But with new alliances came higher stakes. She could not afford to falter. As she left the diner, her resolve solidified into a singular question. Was the emotional labor of truly understanding their struggles worth risking her comfort? Sarah's throat tightened. She was standing at the precipice of establishing her identity in these farmers' lives. Perhaps that was the most daunting reality she faced. Her roots were not yet planted firmly enough to weather the storms ahead. Pushing away doubts, she resolved to return to the fields, to listen and learn. But amid her determination, uncertainty still festered. Would she end up being a beacon of hope, or a fleeting whisper lost in the dust of tradition? The next morning, a brisk wind cut through the fields, moving like fingers through a thick mane of grass. Sarah walked forward, a sense of purpose igniting her steps. The air was fresh, filled with potential, but also thick with the gravity of her new reality. She had set a foundation for collaboration, and now it was time to build something substantial. As she approached the farm, the sun began to pierce through lingering clouds, illuminating the rows of crops that stretched into the horizon. Yet, despite the beauty around her, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Would the farmers genuinely welcome her intentions? She clutched her notepad like a shield, where sketches mingled with observations, all in an effort to prove herself. Her first stop was at the edge of a vibrant tomato patch, where the farmer she had met before, John, was already on site. He was inspecting the plants with an almost paternal care. The sight of him tended to the crop sparked a new wave of determination within her. This couldn't just be about survival. It had to be about thriving together. "Good morning, John," she called, forcing a buoyancy into her tone, though her heart was racing. He turned, his expression unreadable. "You're early," he said. "Hope you're ready to learn what real work looks like." His words felt like an unspoken test, but she gathered herself. "Absolutely. I'm here to understand what you need." He nodded slightly, still analyzing the plants. "What I need is to know that you won't disappear as soon as things get tough." His skepticism resonated. It was fair and honest. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing with ways to prove her commitment. "Let me shadow you today. I want to fully grasp the demands of each season." He raised an eyebrow, perhaps surprised by her bravado. "Fine. Just don't slow me down." As the hours stretched on, Sarah followed him through the farm, witnessing the labor that went into every inch of soil they covered. She jotted down notes on irrigation techniques, pest control, and harvesting times. But more than that, she was observing, a silent witness to the sweat and pride each farmer poured into their livelihood. During the midday sun, as they took a break under a sprawling oak tree, John offered her a roughened hand to shake, a subtle encouragement to dive deeper. "If you're really invested, we can start talking about promoting our market presence and branding." In that moment, Sarah realized she had leaped from mere ideas to actionable plans. Collaboration now seemed tangible, but along with the excitement came rising anxiety. The weight of responsibility loomed larger than before. What if the plan didn't resonate? What if she failed to rise to their expectations? The unease flickered in the back of her mind, but she forced it down. "Let's work on a campaign that tells the farmers' stories," she suggested, her voice firming. "If we honor the past while showing potential customers what we stand for, we could promote their work authentically." He tilted his head, impressed yet guarded. "You might be onto something, but it still won't be easy." "I wouldn't want it to be," she replied with conviction, her heart racing at the prospect of genuine change. "It's about persistence, isn't it?" As they discussed potential narratives and branding, Sarah could feel the energy of their collaboration shifting. This was an opportunity, not just for her but for them. And yet, a part of her felt unmoored, anxiety pooling over her notions of competence. Would her efforts truly reflect their authenticity? As dusk approached, Sarah returned home, flushed with revelations but burdened by the deeper implications of what she had embarked upon. She couldn't deny the passion ignited within her, but she also couldn't ignore the shadow of doubt that lurked in the corners of her mind. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she become just another transient voice, drowned out by the storms of tradition? The path ahead would demand every ounce of resilience within her. That night, as she sat at her desk drafting her next steps, a thought struck her with unsettling clarity. How much of herself was she willing to expose in this partnership? Trust would need cultivation, not just from the farmers, but from herself. With resolve fortifying her spine, she scribbled her next goals. As a new day loomed ahead, the urgency in her heart echoed louder. The moment had come to confront the complexity of her own identity within this fragile partnership. But would her willingness to embrace vulnerability become a weapon or a treacherous liability? The line ahead was blurred, and the reality of potential failure pressed tightly against her ambitions. As Sarah awoke to the soft glow of dawn, a wave of resolve washed over her. Today marked a significant turning point in her journey, one that would solidify her commitment to the farmers, and ultimately to herself. She had spent the previous day immersed in the daily struggles of the farm, but today would be different. Today she would transform her intentions into action. Stepping into the kitchen, she prepared breakfast for Lily, using the moments shared with her daughter as fuel for her aspirations. It was time for Sarah to intertwine motherhood and ambition seamlessly. With each flip of the pancake, she envisioned her dream coming to fruition, a thriving farm that would elevate not just her family, but an entire community. After dropping Lily off at school, Sarah drove toward the farm, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She arrived ready to tackle the responsibilities that awaited her with John and the other farmers, yet uncertainty still nagged at her. Would they truly embrace her ideas? How could she lead without alienating them further? Her heart raced as she met John on site, surrounded by rows of vegetables bursting with life. "John, I've been thinking a lot about our conversations and the branding strategies we discussed. I believe we can unite our voices to create a compelling narrative," she stated firmly, locking eyes with him. He measured her up with a calculative gaze. "Go on," he encouraged, intrigued. She unveiled her detailed proposal, interlacing their history with modern agricultural trends. "By sharing our stories, your struggles and successes, we can create a bond with customers who truly care about the origins of their food. This community deserves to know the dedication behind every harvest." As she spoke, she could feel the energy shift. The other farmers began leaning in, intrigued by her passion. The weight of her earlier self-doubt began to lift, and with every word, confidence surged within her. Yet a voice of doubt flickered in her mind. What if they perceived her as an outsider? What if the tenacity she projected crumbled under pressure? But then Sarah remembered her roots, the late nights spent researching, the sweat that landed on her brow as she worked alongside them, and most importantly, her commitment to forge a future for Lily. John broke the silence, a slight smile creeping across his face. "You've got guts, Sarah. If you can pull this off, we'll be right behind you. I'll gather the stories, your stories, and we can launch a campaign to showcase what makes our farm unique," she replied, her heart daring to hope. "All right, let's see you put your money where your mouth is," he challenged, but his tone reflected an understanding. Over the coming weeks, they formed an alliance, united by an unwavering purpose. Sarah became an integral part of the farming community, working tirelessly to document victories and challenges. With every piece of content she created, a powerful bond forged between them, the outsiders and the insiders, now collaborator and collaborator. The first farmers' market day approached, and the excitement was palpable. Sarah could hardly sleep, envisioning how their stories would come alive. Yet anxiety clawed at her as well. What if the turnout was poor? What if the connection she had worked so hard to build shattered in front of them? But as she stood behind the stall, adorned with their crops attractively displayed, visions of her grandfather filled her mind. Entwined with each tomato was a story of resilience, waiting to be shared. The market buzzed with energy as locals began to flock to their stand. They sold out within hours. The applause from the community echoed in her ears, boosting her confidence. A moment of euphoria surged through her as she exchanged smiles with Lily, who stood proudly by her side. In that instant, Sarah understood. She had not only reclaimed her legacy, but reshaped it. After the market, Sarah caught John's eye amidst the euphoria. "We did it," she smiled, breathless. "Yeah," he replied, his demeanor now infused with respect. "You're a part of this team now, Sarah." It was then that Sarah realized her most profound change. She had transformed from a mere waitress with dreams into a recognized force within the farming community. She had not only proven her worth, but had accomplished her mission of creating a legacy for Lily to cherish. As the sun set on that vibrant marketplace, Sarah breathed deeply, pride and fulfillment blooming within her. It was clear, she had risen beyond her doubts, mastering both her ambition and love for her daughter, a true culmination of strength, collaboration, and genuine spirit. And with a settled heart, Sarah recognized that her journey was only beginning. A new chapter awaited her, where she would forge ahead with the same tenacity she had shown throughout her transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait for another second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.